Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And thank you for your statement, Minister, and may I say congratulations for your recent appointment. I'm sure that the other members here will agree with me that in an ideal world, no child will be taken. Thank you. No child will be taken from their family to be looked after by the state. No matter how caring or dedicated the staff looking after children in care are, there is no substitute for the security of a stable family environment, however that family may be made up. But it of course happens, it's sometimes a horrible necessity that a child has to be taken away from their family. And I'm pleased to see that schemes are in place to reduce the numbers of children being taken into care in the first place, and that there are things being put in place to provide them support once they come out of care. I would like to see, though, further support being given to children in care, but I'll come on to that in a moment. Working with young mums to break the cycle of repeated pregnancies is a good idea, as is extending support available from personal advisors up to the age of 25. But what worries me is that, although I acknowledge that funds are not unlimited, the sums that set out in your statement intended to be spent on the 5,500 or more children being looked after by the Welsh Government don't seem to me to be particularly large. 400,000 to deliver the fostering network is a relatively small sum, and 125,000 to develop adoption support work across the country represents a tiny amount of money. I mean, it's only £25,000 per region. So how do you see this money being spent, and how much difference do you think it's going to make to the actual outcomes of looked after children? The sum set aside to address youth homelessness is tiny given the size of and number of homelessness and rough sleepers in Wales. Looked after children are already disadvantaged by the circumstances which took them into care in the first place. Their education will have suffered alongside. It's vital that these children are helped to find a better future, and providing additional educational support is very, very important. The money promised and referred to in your statement as being for that purpose is submerged within the pupil deprivation grant of £4 million. But that £4 million has to provide educational support for deprived children who aren't looked after as well. So how much of that pupil deprivation grant will be spent on improving the educational outcomes of looked after children specifically? And how can you ensure us that the money set aside will be sufficient to bring substantive results? I welcome the proposals to exempt care leavers from council tax. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I would really, really encourage local authorities across Wales to adopt the proposal. As I said, the schemes referred to in your statement are encouraging. And like I said, I have doubts about whether sufficient resources are being put in place. But I really do hope that the investment that you've referred to and the schemes that you've referred to bear the fruit that you and the rest of us hope. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you very much. And I think the nub of your argument, and by the way, can I just thank you for welcoming the approach that we're taking and what we're trying to achieve with the outcomes, because this is very much focused on the outcomes, rather than simply saying we tick boxes, we distribute grants and we keep our fingers crossed and we hope for the best. This is all designed around the idea of collaborating with partners out there, both with local government and with others, and with existing schemes on the ground, such as the Flying Start programme, the Families First programme, and so on, in order to deliver that turnaround in a child or young person's life, in their family situation, that will be enduring and long-lasting. So whilst, what I would say to you, Michelle, is whilst some of the individual sums may look small, they're not insignificant, by the way, because we have to find this from a shrinking budget, quite frankly. But they're not, because when you target them in the right way, and this is the approach, as you know, and taking advice, by the way, not simply the Welsh Government doing it off the top of its head and saying, well, let's throw a little bit of money here and a little bit of there. Steered very much by the views of frontline professionals, by those who are in care situations themselves, by the Ministerial Advisory Group as well, saying that these are the right interventions. And I would say, if money was no object, frankly, and I had the chequebook, I would write a cheque 10 times as big, and I would transform it tomorrow and by next year. We're simply not in that situation. We are where we are. But what we can do is both box cleverer by working much cleverer on the ground, doing the right interventions. So those edge of care services, for example, and the £8 million additional that we've just put into that area of work, that's exactly the sort of thing. That £8 million can go a long way in the right situation to actually addressing that issue of helping keep children and young people in a family situation where it's appropriate by putting the wraparound with them. When you add that to Flying Start and Families First and other interventions, that goes a long, long way. So it's not a question of putting one box over here and say this will solve the problem. It's actually to do with integrated collaborative services on the ground that identify the young person, identify the support they need and pull that support around them. So I would simply say don't look at just slithers of funding. Look at the whole on the ground there and where the outcomes come, because the measure of success of this is very much to do with the outcomes. Does this mean that the effects for children who are in looked-after care situations are better? Does it mean that those who leave to leave independent lives are improved? And does it mean that actually those who are on the edge of going into care, that their opportunities are also improved and sometimes kept in the family situation as well by better wraparound care?
Thank you. Neil McAvoy.